With Doom Eternal being out for a few weeks now, and realizing that our new favorite color is violence, I say it's time we gather around the campfire and really grab this game by the boners. Doom Eternal is known for its difficulty, and god damn, I love that. But can you beat Doom Eternal without taking any health damage? The Doomslayer was put into this universe for one reason, to pound the soul anus of the entire demonic force. But in this game, the enemies are a bit different from the previous entries, being far more aggressive and wanting nothing but to see your death. The game throws not only its religious intolerances at you, but also a nice, heaping, generous amount of dick. Thinking that you are even given a moment to breathe is already losing. Before we start, let's discuss the rules. The first and only rule, as the title states, I cannot lose health at all this run. I will only have 50 armor to work with the entirety of this playthrough, and if it drops below 0 and I take health damage, I must restart a checkpoint. This armor can be refilled, and will give me the leniency of a single hit or two, but truly that doesn't matter when the entirety of hell wants to blow out your asshole. Before this run starts, grab yourself a can of your favorite sody pop and your choice of personal favorite opioid. Maybe you'll even be a sweet cutie idiot and FPS Russia that like button. Will the gladiator commit the cardinal sin of touching our waifu the Doomslayer's petite Christian body? Will Senza need to be tased a few times so that he can keep his head in the game and focus on this W? Let's find out. This conquest of carnage and hegemonic masculinity starts out simple. Demons have invaded Earth in search of a new life. We play as Doom Guy, aka a channel member of mine named Prismal. Being the perfect human optimal height of 5'11" and renowned as a prolific and illustrious 2020 waifu of the year, this hulking Chad is humanity's last hope, placed into this universe to dismiss the lives of those that do not believe in the doctrine of predestination. After slapping on my Fursona costume, the homeboy Vega turned on my portal gun, and into the abyss I went in search of the Hell Priests that have staged this attack on our freedom and religious beliefs. The first level of this crusade shouldn't be too much of a doozy, and we won't be talking about me having to run back a checkpoint 1 minute into the run. Pushing through the area, I pressed the desecrate demonic livelihood button and had an encounter with my first group of enemies. This part alone was put into the game to give you hope. They send little jimmies and imps at you, expecting you to kill them with ease and leave with an ego that rivaled Mount Everest. But this was all just practice for the fights that will eventually send blood pumping through your wieners. The first Hell Priest was ahead, and Doom Guy wasn't happy. Turned out that this naughty boy was belittling the Doomslayer and his mother in a Halo 3 multiplayer lobby. As always, the Doomslayer followed his instinctual nature and opened up a finely aged bottle of heretic extermination. With the first Hell Priest dead, the demonic consumption of Earth went down by 36%, but my erection grew a whopping 50. This version of Earth isn't much different than ours. The human race is built upon nothing but holy ideologies and moral high grounds. They do not dare marry that the likes of heresy. This is why I am here to protect them, Fursona and all. Even on ultra violence, I was able to swoon and sway delicately between these demons with my sticky bombs and physical aggression. Learning the weak point of the Arachnotron was big, or at least I thought it was, until I was confined in a subway with only him. For some reason, this was all around the hardest part of the first level. A confined space, plus not having a very big arsenal, gave me some really bad asshole dry heave. Having to reset 21 times just on this part alone, things were off to a bad start. But listen here, baby. When that cutie with the nice booty comes around that corner, don't follow your ever-growing IQ. Avoid his weak spot and blast him with your sticky bombs till your pussy puts his ass to sleep. The rest of this level should be cake if you attempt to try this run. A restart here and there, but for the most part, I was able to breeze past these shekel goblins and what I thought would be the hardest part of this level. After taking out the rest of the trash, I approached the other two Hell Priests and made it very obvious that this cute petite unicorn wasn't f***ing around. Their tyranny over this earth and everyone's bank accounts was enough. But listen, the Doomslayer wasn't having it. He was out here with all this ass and he was ready to fuck. For this run, I will not be upgrading my armor, nor will I be upgrading anything else. Unfortunately, the first upgrade shard is breastfed to you without your consent, and any of them afterwards will be ignored. Exultia was our next destination, and home to something that is vital to my success this run. My passport was made, and off I went. A few sticky bombs and a cute little kiss from a roid rage boy, I was given the Thanos gauntlet. Incapable of actually snapping enemies out of existence, this gauntlet actually allows you to fist them out of existence. distance. Whether they are into the fetish or not, pain is always the outcome. This will be a useful tool this run, and I truly appreciate Marvel for lending it to me. Crossing the bridge to continue on this crusade turned out to be equivalent to contracting a venereal disease. This part should have been simple, but not even simplicity can counter my autism. 16 tries and realizing my cerebral cortex is non-existent later, I took a ride on a merry-go-round and was gifted yet another gift, a power that many long for, a power that will leave you saying, "God damn, Doomslayer, you got that Sonic the Hedgehog on Blu-ray DVD pussy, and I love it." This power-up turns the Doomslayer into a monster, and I now had speed, which is vital to the process of me delivering my full meat to these demons. With this newfound speed, I could easily dodge my enemies' attacks and reposition, and with the condom now securely fastened, let's discuss the plan. Operation My Teacher Put the D in My Grades So I Put the D in His Wife is now in full effect. Speed is not only a physical concept, but a metaphorical one, and I could bet you my 2 testicles you don't know what that means. Because I don't either. The enemies in Doom Eternal will devour your ass in a split second, and playing to stay above 100 health will need your all-time focus and dexterity. We must use all possible tools to our advantage, and I know during these trying times we are lost and hopeless, being driven insane by this quarantine and the fear of becoming infected. Fortunately for you all, this run is a medically therapeutic experience prescribed by doctors, and I will be your guide on getting through this. Now let's get back to the run. After meeting with my father figure for a quick chat, I set off into a portal to the depths of hell to find the betrayer. Doom Eternal brought me the gift that kept on giving, just like AIDS. I died more than a handful of times on my search of Cool Guy, an ungodly amount actually, bringing my death count from 63 at the point of entering the portal to 142. Not only were these deaths fueling my rage-induced outburst, but these villainous and disgusting creatures held a forbidden and vile fetish that they will soon pay for. Their obsession with Octopussy was abhorrent, and this is what fueled me and my will to keep going. It was up to me to exterminate the anger that filled these demons' hearts and the gracious amount of tentacles that fueled their fantasies. After destroying some more tentacles in the name of revolutionary Japan, I had to reset a few big many times and made it to the homie to get my celestial locator a new battery. There was no time to relax and cuddle though. I had more demons to kill. The ending part of this level is a pain, and trial and error is my only tip for this. Grabbing that suppository of quad damage and just clenching your sphincter ani externus is your only viable option here. After a few resets and taking damage from the smallest of sources, you should be good, and that brings us to level 3, the Cultists Base. With the celestial locator now powered up, it was time to find the Hell Priest with the intellect and physical qualities of a loaf of bread. This frozen covered planet is an authoritarian dystopia, and it truly isn't for everyone. It is littered with shekel goblins, and these goblins will force you to reload an ample amount of checkpoints. They enjoy it, and they enjoy your pain. A whole new type of enemy is also encountered here. First met in one of my Doom challenges,
there he was, a typical McDonald's customer.
This bad boy deserves focus and attention. If not, you will experience the tortures of perpetual loading screens. Further into the level, we are given yet another gift from the gods, the rocket launcher. This little mischievous thing cares not of talk or your political standings, only of wrecking straight up demonic booty cheeks. This is the first part of the deadly trio, the weapons that will carry us through these trying times. With the lack of armor pickups, it was difficult to play around the dynamically placed hazard that threatened me and my livelihood. Armor was scarce, just like the presence of my social life, and these demons hit harder than a domestic abuse case. But the Doomslayer was looking for love, and fortunately for him, there was a nice little female nearby that he used to fiddle with a couple years back. Just thinking about her can get any he, she, they, it bricked up in nearly an instant. Many demons were slain in the name of his conquest, and after a few gold medal Olympic performances, I met with Geraldine and convinced her into retrieving my hot date. Let's just say that this part was harder than it should have been, and I am sure that the enemies here enjoyed mukbanging my asshole. But with my pride and joy now in my possession, I was now 2/3 of the way to enlightenment. Enlightenment that I have always longed for. The final encounter of this level was horrifying. These failed abortions were destroying me, and each and every reset was driving me insane. The second Hell Priest was in my sights, and I was coming. What? Oh, come on, not like that, you sick little His nuts were certainly going to be quaking, but not until after I dealt with some more pain and incessant suffering. God. Yes! Woo! Love it, babe. I pushed my way through the Doom Hunter base in search of this Hell Priest, and I was basically living in my loading screen during this section. After wasting a couple of pinkies and acting in my highest civic standard to not break another keyboard from so much resetting, I encountered the Doom Hunter. Forged loosely on the ideals that the Doomslayer can experience the tranquility of death, this abomination was made to destroy me, and that it did. At first, the sensation of pain was intoxicating. I enjoyed every damn moment and it felt great. But after 34 minutes of only his first phase, I started to get a bit angsty. Armor drops are abundant here, but being sure to stay on the move and using my sticky bomb often was my only means of success for this fight. Time and time again, I was susceptible to the Doom Hunter's high velocity tornado of my shit up. But I had to keep a decent head, because after this conquest, I was going to be given the ballista, and that would complete the holy trio. This was big to me because it deals a lot of damage, and I really like a lot of damage. After killing off his first phase, I was subject to more torture. Torture that almost made me want to commit eating poison oblivion apple. And this part was almost as bad as when I realized that I was lied to my entire life, and that water was just hydrogen soup. I not only had to deal with one, but two of the Doom Hunters. On paper, this seems terrible, but then I realized something. These beasts had brains that were severely malformed, and they both suffered great learning disabilities. Instead of doing the smart thing and both of them fighting me at the same time, they refused to. So just taking laps around the map, damaging each one little by little, was a play until I was able to put them both to sleep. There are many words to describe the second Hell Priest, but we can factually say that alive is not one of them. As the run went on, my IQ was growing at an exponential rate, and so was my arsenal. I now had the ballista, and that meant that I was going to bring nothing but death to these heretics. It was time to head back to Earth and take out the Super Gore Nest. The thought of this level sent shivers down my spine and into my ass crack. Just the first area alone took me 30 minutes to get through. All of my orifices were being filled with demonic dick, and I couldn't do anything about it. The cryo grenade came in clutch during the first part, but this didn't prepare me for the next. I had not experienced true torment before I stepped into this Thunderdome. For most, this area would provide nothing but an erotic experience. Being enclosed in what seemed to be like a blue waffle, some fantasies are surely to be met here. An hour and 2 breaks is what it took to get me through this part alone. These demons were destructive, and id Software was bordering on sadism at this point. If I were IGN and rated this area, I would give it an incredibly small decimal out of a massive number, because it had way too much death. The rest of the level was doable, but just a whole ass hemorrhoid. After pushing my way through constantly resetting, I ran into some more tentacles, killed a metric poop stock full of demons, and eventually cleared off all the aids that infested the reactor thing. It took me a try or two. No! Ugh. These tentacles really like fucking me, don't they? And sabotaging my own run, but I was finally out of there, and the demonic uterus was taken care of. And it was time to find that robo, he, she, him, her, they, it, whatever the hell it wants to be called. I really don't want to get canceled. Hayden. Although his intentions have always been far different from mine, I was going to need him to find the last Hell Priest. Doom Eternal, the quintessential Chad simulator that every high school hot boy used as their Bible, this game is not only for entertainment, but can be used as a tool, teaching you how you should live your life. I was on the search for Hayden, and it was clear that nothing was going to get into the Doomslayer's way. With nothing but 50 armor, I pushed my way through this dangerous territory. Resets were abundant, but the Doomslayer and I were attracted to the ASMR that was these demons dying. I'm just going to keep talking and fluffing up the fact that this was totally easy, especially the garage area, and the tentacle lover wet dream, and the plane crash, and the room with all these bad boys, and the part where After a very long trek, I eventually made it to Haydens Lab. The mere mortals around me were starstruck in my presence, and their panties quickly turned into the 7 C's. But I, the Doomslayer, was a proud Christian conservative, and I wasn't going to let these sinners get in my way. The homie was in some sort of stasis, but his assistance was imperative to this run. I yeeted the poor thing into the portal, and it seemed as though I fucked up. My actions were completely out of my jurisdiction, and the infamous Marauder came to spank me red for my naughty deeds. Are you curious to see what happens when the embodiment of masculinity meets a Marauder? Do you know what happens when 2 titans collide? Nothing, you idiot. God damn, you're so fucking The Marauder straight up unloaded his ass onto me, and man did it taste like nothing but salty milk and rusted pennies. One hit would involve me having to reset a checkpoint, but if you learn to dodge his attacks and weapon cycle efficiently, he's nothing more than mincemeat. All those reviewers gave the Marauder a hard time because their power levels didn't match his, but fortunately mine does. With Hayden back in my possession, I hooked him up to the man cave mainframe and was immediately told of the last Hellpriest location. The portal to him was located in the core of Mars, and the only way to the core was to make a hole. My baby girl, the BFG, had been turned into an actual big fucking gun, or big fucking gun just in case the censored F word wasn't obvious enough. I used what I now decided was rightfully mine to open up the blast sealed doors and went ahead on my way to get a hold of that mounted BFG. And all of these demons suffered unforeseen circumstances, all because they decided to be in my presence. These political extremists even attempted throwing their very own thick boy at me. These thick little scrumptious beings were nothing but eye candy to the Doomslayer, especially when matched up against my arsenal. Out on the surface of the base, it was in my honor to supply more of that luxurious commodity known as death. I did take a few slaps to the ass and had to hit that life alert button a few times, but in due time, I was in my prom date's presence, and it was an honor to have this beautiful thing now in my possession. Not only does it have a high level of exclusivity and is a pre-order bonus for those that pre-ordered the game, but it is also a tool that holds the damage equivalent of 15 kilograms of enriched uranium. After aligning the WMD with Mars, my time of refraining from transgressions was over. Against Hayden's words, I let loose my load, and god damn, it felt fucking good.
Really sorry about your ass.
It's all good, bro.
It was done. My portal to the last Hellpriest was open, and the BFG and I were now finally wed. The world was our ass-tenderizing oyster, and everything and everyone was just a test dummy in our way. The rest of the level involved me resetting many times, and experiencing the tranquil and therapeutic ways of the Pornhub hardcore section. After remembering that I literally had a weapon that could end any and all racial tensions that resided in our universe, I dealt with the front page of 4chan, was shot through a cannon, and then was hit with big words, like my damnation and eternal suffering. The ending part of this level was a pain, and really brought me my eternal suffering, taking me 43 resets, but eventually I was out of there, and on to my next daunting task. The sweet sound of the Doomslayer's ook ook me man me strong voice
Guts. Huge guts.
wasn't enough to prepare me for the horrors that awaited ahead. The Gladiator was a spineless demonic cuckold boss that wanted nothing but to see me in pain. This universal healthcare crooked face looking head ass was a peasant that couldn't afford anything better but to be my dominatrix. Not only was he an exceptionally competent math major, using quadratic formula equations and line regressions to solve for where I was going to be at all moments of the fight, but he was spanking me up hella good.
Okay, Captain's log. It's my 27th time dying. If I die again, stay there. Do it.
This fight was painful and took me 73 tries to complete. Just praying to Mick Gordon was my only option. The rocket launcher was my go-to, holding enough explosive power to actually take on this titan. Just keep your lock-on missiles ready and use the demons around him for health or ammo pickups. The sound was profound, the shiver of his sphincter yielding to my explosive yet cold rockets. With the Gladiator dead, that meant that this run was close to wrapping up, and I could finally get rid of this incessant migraine. The human eye can only see 8 gigabytes of bullshit, but it turns out that Kanye and her species saw all 16 gigs of mine. She was angry with what I had done, being the meddling kid to ruin her plans, and her idea of punishment was to take away my man cave. But little did she know, I still had the Crucible in my possession, and her antics weren't going to fly with me. Terrace and Abad was my next destination in the conquest, and one of my last. This was where I could forge my Crucible and become a man. This was the equivalent of the journey SpongeBob and Patrick had, but now it was my turn. All was well so far into the level, until I met the Archvile. This disgusting creature put me in my place, and I was whipped. 15 resets later, I figured out a tactic that I was going to use for the rest of this run. Freezing the Archvile and hitting him directly with a BFG splooge shot silenced this and this was all that mattered to me. I know that this is a little overkill, but I'll do anything to get that deformed mouth breather off my screen. After dealing with the J station of this game, I was hit with truly a sad story. This honest and innocent gargoyle was trapped and forced into sex work for these fiends, all because he had the question of whether or not ripping and tearing was an empirical science. So sad. We don't deserve him, gentlemen. Cocks out for his freedom. A couple of free swims without floaties later, learning that Hayden is basically my dad, and then resetting my game 21 times thanks to this confined area, I was gifted something special. Forged with care and love and made in the finest batter, consisting of demonic skimmed milk and Mick Gordon's nut, my very own crucible was finally made, and boy did it feel good. The demonic forums and subreddits were littered with posts on how OP this thing was and its needed nerf, but that won't stop me. This was just the tip of the asshole, baby. The run was coming to an end. I needed to get to the Conmaker before she let loose a big baddie and destroyed the entirety of the human population. My only way to get to her was through a hellish BDSM dungeon, and to speed things up, I'll give you guys a quick rundown on what happened on the rest of this damageless crusade. Not only is Necrovol 1 and 2 subjectively the most AIDS part of the game, but it is also the part of the game that preaches id Software's political agenda and views on how the Great Potato Famine was all a lie. If you agree with these claims that I totally just made up now, then I like you, and you deserve a kiss. I was probably having to reset on average every minute or two, and the amount of enemies that were showing up was starting to become overwhelming. Finishing off Necrovol Part 2, I ran past most of the enemies and went to town on the final horde, dicking them down with every inch of my 1-inch wiener. The portal was open, and it was now time to deal with Kanye. This whole level led to an ungodly amount of use of my chainsaw and super shotgun upgrade. The Marauders weren't much of a trouble here. It was mainly just a fatty amount of booty this game was throwing at me. Specifically, this part alone took me 34 checkpoint resets. Eventually, I confronted Kanye, and it was time to take on the second to last boss of this game. This fight was a whole pain in the ass and took me 42 tries to actually get down. The problem was there weren't enough armor drops in the arena, and the Conmaker's puppets were not a very good source for my nutrients. It was all about maneuvering around, grabbing armor drops when needed, and popping some heads for sweet rocket ammo. After locking onto the Conmaker, expect her health bar to be immediately raped, allowing you to do some good old-fashioned fisting to finish her off. With her dead, I still had one more beast to tackle, the Icon of Sin. Getting to him wasn't too much of a nuisance. It took me a good bit and quite a few resets, but eventually I made it. At this point, I was sitting at 723 resets, already far surpassing that of my Doom 2016 run. I bleached off all of the blood, guts, and ejaculate that became one with my Persona armor and entered that arena. This fight was a difficult one, and a lot harder than I expected. The Icon of Sin sends a whirlwind of bullshit and chlamydia at you, just constantly f***ing your shit up. After 30 minutes of just throwing myself at his first phase, I grew tired of his fist slam ability, the one that literally takes out the entirety of your shield and then some. So I developed a tactic, and here it is, if you're craving for some of that masochism. Staying on the ground level of the arena is key. Anywhere else, and you are just asking for a nice spanking. Down on the bottom floor, he doesn't do his fist slam ability, allowing you to lay in as much damage as possible. This will in turn force hordes of enemies to come at you, but use them to your advantage. Crucible spawns are abundant, so just running back and forth, grabbing them and killing the demons as they come at you is the objective, all while you are damaging the Icon of Sin. After a few dozen tries, I was blessed by RNGesus and beat him, taking me an hour just to finish his first phase. Fortunately, his second is a whole lot easier. Stay on the bottom floor again, cycling in between crucible spawns, killing any creature that comes your way, and using the cannon fodder mobs for ammo and armor. In no time, with the help of your arsenal and minigun, the Icon will fall, and you can beat Doom Eternal without taking any health damage. It was a tedious task and resulted in me having to reload 807 times, but I finally did it. This run was far worse in comparison to my damageless Doom run, but after my recent Borderlands 3 video and smashing my keyboard, I was used to it. This will truly be my last without damage run, as I really don't want to be admitted into Arkham Asylum. If you made it to the end, I truly appreciate you, and comment #Fursona, and I'll heart your comment. If you enjoy the crusades I carry out in the name of the Diaper Booty Gang, then you should hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you to the Diaper Booty Chairmen for funding this episode, and thank you all for spending your time with me and watching. Take care, wear your seatbelts, and tell your grandma she looks great today. Hugs and kisses, and be safe, my friends. See you all next week.